Here's a quick look into today's episode.
I think for a lot of people, when they look at getting out of the Army, it's really scary. And there's a lot of people that aren't going to admit that, but they are fearful. And it's because they don't understand, like, does any of the stuff that I learned transfer over? I don't think it does. There's a ton of stuff that does. And that's kind of why I ended up in the job that I'm in. I love solving problems. I love working in teams. I love working with people from multiple organizations, putting them together to solve a problem. I love pitching ideas and solutions to issues. And I learned how to do all of that in the United States Army. We may not have used the same language that they did, but it's all the same stuff. Anything in the Army, in any organization, can be accomplished with the right culture. I think you can overcome manning problems and equipment issues and crammed schedules if you have the right culture in an organization.
Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership. And not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Today's episode is with Joe Bocchi. Joe recently got out of the Army and is sharing his story and his experiences as a junior officer and company commander. Most of our conversation is about people and the leadership that inspired him and how he intends to emulate that leadership outside of the Army. Joe opens up to the hard truths and scary times that come with choosing to separate. He talks about how people treated him different and how the strict timelines and limited options impacted his decisions. Whether you're a leader in the Army or someone who cares about what's going on in the heads of our most talented junior leaders, you will get some honesty and then some in this episode with Joe Bocchi. Let's go.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I did not know I could do FaceTime. I'm not a Mac guy, so I didn't know that I could join a FaceTime from my PC, but this is a pretty sweet setup. I'm fired up.
Oh my goodness. I'm fired up, man. I just got off the phone with Trivius for a half an hour or so. And he's like, whenever I think of soldiers, the most fired up people, I think of Joe Bocchi. He's like, I'm so jealous that you're going to get to talk to him for a while.
Every single time he and I talk, my day gets better. Every time. I don't think there's a single conversation we've ever had where my day didn't drastically improve just from talking to him about anything.
Yeah.
It does not matter with him. He is just such a phenomenal human being that he makes my day better every time we chat. Yeah, I saw his Instagram post of his airborne beret and I just got fired up just looking at it. I was so excited for him. We were talking about it the other day and I was like, what's your message going to be? What's the first thing you're going to do on your first day? Immediately back into it, just fired up right off the rip. So it was awesome.
Yeah. What have you been up to recently?
So I actually just started working a new job. I am at a company called Salesforce. It's a IT company. I did the whole skill bridge thing as I was transitioning out of the Army and then wound up there. Very grateful to all of the veterans that helped me get a job there. They have a very large veteran presence called Vet Force.
Mm-hmm.
So, just phenomenal people from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. And they helped me get a job there. So I'm working in software sales now. I did not think that was originally what I wanted to do. I was looking at more like project management stuff, as a lot of us generally do.
Yep.
But, talking to them, I realized that a lot of my passions that I had in the Army, a lot of the stuff that I like doing just on a daily basis, the small things were what I would do for a job there. Just getting to know new people, talking to people, coming into conversations with energy, solving problems, right? All of those things are things that I get to do every day now. So it's not necessarily for the Army, but it's for small businesses. And so, if I get to watch a small business go to a large business or medium business and see them flourish, I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty fulfilling.
That's awesome, man. It's good to catch up with you. I feel like I've seen you every couple months, ever since you left Hawaii. But I see you at least every 5 or 6 months, face to face, talk to you on the phone, something like that. Yeah. But today, it was a huge opportunity to like dig deep into like some of the things, like what you've been up to, what was some of the experiences that you had, so I've been really looking forward to like having this conversation with you about, your time in the Army and making that transition. And then what about the future, because you're at a different point in your life than some of the older folks that spent a ton of time in the Army. And when they make the transition, you still got so much ahead of you, so much life that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. We did see each other a lot. We still see each other a lot. And I'm very blessed and grateful for that. There's people that come and go in everyone's lives, right? And the good ones are ones that you always hope to stay for a long time. And you're one of those people. And Lieutenant Colonel Caldwell is one of those people. And I'm the very blessed one. I'm the lucky one to be able to say that, like, you're people that are still in my life, right? And I hope that never changes. I never want that to change. I personally am going to do my best not to allow that to change. I will still reach out to you, understanding that you're going to be a lot busier than me,
Nope.
And
No.
And so, so I like, there's so many people like that, coming from the Army. And, I was so excited to come on this podcast that you have. Number one, because the people that you've had on here are like phenomenal people, like human being at the human level, at the soldier level, at the leader level, just amazing human beings, right? That are incredibly accomplished, just unbelievable people. And for me to be able to share that platform with people like that, I frankly in disbelief, right? I'm just like, hey, I'm just a regular guy, I'm just a regular guy. And like, but the opportunity that even if one person hears one thing that I may say or that you may say, in conversation on this podcast, if it helps them in any way, like that to me is a huge win. Like that's all I want to do is help anyone that I can help now or later. It doesn't matter. I just want to help people, especially people that are still in the Army or that, have recently transitioned out like myself, both of those, soldier, NCO, officer at any level. That's really what I'm excited to do.
Yeah. I often ask people, like, what do they want people to feel or think when they hear like your name? And you just like explained it, like right there. Like, that's what I think of whenever I hear, your name, is somebody that does it, that's been doing it for all the right reasons, like cares about the people that they're around them, wants to genuinely allow them to have a better life in the Army, outside the Army, enjoy what it is they're doing, be a pro at whatever it is that they're doing. Like that's you. You don't just say it, rather, like you live it. And so that when you think we're the ones that are blessed to kind of be able to hear some of the things that you get to share with those people.
Well, thank you for saying that. That means a lot, right? Coming from a senior leader and someone that I hold in incredibly high regard. And it's validating, right? Because that is what I wanted to do, right? Is I just wanted, going back to the conversation you had with General Gerard, I just wanted to see people reach their potential, and be happy, whether that was in the Army, in life, in both, with their families, whatever the case may be. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to see that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do everything in my power to help them do it. Right. I didn't want to be the reason that it happened. I wanted to help them on their way for that to be the case, because, that is impactful, right? Like that is really what's impactful. Because, those people then go on to do that for others, because they first not only experienced it done for them, but they saw how it was done for them, right? Yeah. And they see like how that looks. And I didn't invent that. I didn't, I am not the Renaissance man that invented that method. I learned it from you. I learned it from Colonel Mayo. I learned it from General Van. I learned it from Lieutenant Colonel Caldwell. I learned it from my battalion commander, Colonel Dale Maru. Like, I learned it from all of them, right? And just being able to pass that on and touch other people, knowing that they will then touch other people, that was really the goal.
Yeah. You said two things in there, what the way you make people feel, the way you make people want to do to better inspire people, right? And so like we could easily, there's so many answers out there. There's so many ways to get the answers to every test. There's checklists, there's books, there's manual, right? But inspiring people is when you make them want to do something for themselves. You make them want to do something for their team, right? And then the best way that people learn is they learn through demonstration, through watching other people do it, through watching how remembering how you watched somebody do something or saw how they do it. Like that's proven to be the best way, especially in the Army, right? In leadership, is to say, I had some leaders that showed me the way to do it in certain areas. I had some leaders that showed me some areas where I want to do different. I want to do it better. I don't want to do it that way. But when you compile it all together, it becomes your way. Your way of kind of inspiring people as you go. So what is one of the reasons that drove you to serving in the first place? Like how did you grow up and what made you kind of think about the Army in the first place?
Yeah, I actually love that question. Because everyone's answer is different, right? Everyone's path is so different.
Yeah.
And you hear like every reason under the sun. So I not only love hearing it, but I also love like telling my version. I was not like, mine isn't a crazy route. I grew up in a non-military family in Lakewood, Washington. So like right outside of JBLM. I think I was 7 minutes from North Fort for those that, were stationed out there. And so I always grew up patriotic kid. Like I remember September 11th as a little kid and like the profound impact that it had on me. I remember, tying the yellow ribbon around the oak tree when I was in elementary school during the invasion of Iraq and everything. And that had a very profound effect on me. And I grew up very patriotic. I was also like very drawn to it, the structure, the discipline, the accomplishment of the Army and the grit, right? Like those things really were attractive to me. I held that, like the way I viewed it was like everything they did was accomplishment, right? And then, as I get older, a lot of my friends, their parents were, they had Army families. And some of their parents had really profound impacts on me, just who they were, how they lived their life, the values that they had, the way that they saw the world, the things that they did every day, had a really profound impact on me. And, I was an example of like, I didn't know that was what I wanted to do, but I always wanted to do it. Yeah. Like I remember being in middle school watching like Surviving the Cut, like Ranger School, Special Forces Selection, and I'm like, that's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Right. Yeah. And as miserable as it looked, I'm like, that is awesome. And so I go do my freshman year of college at Washington State. And I will never forget studying for finals and stopping and like putting my pen down and realizing like, this is it, like I'm just going to be at a desk for a long time. And my first job will probably be at a desk. And where would that be? Like, oh, well, probably Seattle. And I was just like, something's got to change. Like that is not appealing to me at all. I need action. I need adventure. And I wanted all those things that I always saw in the Army. And so I will never forget, I'm working a lifeguarding job that summer. And it was in the afternoon, probably about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I pull up into my parents' driveway. I put my car in park and I'm staring at my parents' garage. And it was like a bolt of lightning hit me. Like it wasn't like I firmly believe that God put me on that track 100%. Like that was what God wanted me to do. And that's what he was communicating to me, was like in my bones, in my soul. I was like, I'm going to join the Army. That's what I'm going to do. And I knew it. It wasn't, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. There was no doubt. There was no question. That was what I was going to do. And then I'm immediately like, well, what will I do in the Army? And I was like, I want to be a freaking Ranger. Like that's what I want to do. I want to go to Ranger school. I want to go to airborne school. I want to be an infantryman. And that was it. There was no other question. It was like, I knew. I was like, oh yeah, I know. Like without a shadow of a doubt. And so that night I signed up for ROTC classes, and then, the rest is history from there. So
yeah,
that was how I decided.
Yeah. Talk about a small world. Washington State, when you just said that, we just came from a volleyball tournament with Evan, and Washington State is the university that's either talked to her the most or she's reached out to after this tournament. Talk about a small world.
Hey, great place. Go Cougs. I loved it there. I'm sure she would too. She would probably be a phenomenal addition to the team. Crimson and gray forever.
Oh my goodness.
I love Washington State. And I always say everyone is a silent WSU fan.
Yeah.
Their colors are crimson and gray. And I always said, because everyone bleeds crimson.
Yeah.
So,
man,
I loved it there. Yeah, I loved it there. It was awesome.
So you did ROTC while you're out there. How did that go? Did it just kind of flash, like, okay, all of a sudden you found yourself in BOLIC or basic officer leader course, or you found yourself in Ranger School? Was that like a blur, or how did those first couple of years go for you?
That's a great question. So for those that get easily discouraged, I failed my very first PT test, failed sit-ups, right? I was just like, I'd never done anything like that before, failed sit-ups, and they were not very interested in me, to say the least, right? And I kept at it, and then I think I scored like a 98 on my second one. And then from there, it was a blur. Yeah. From there, it was totally a blur. Just, I remember looking at a 5-paragraph op order and being like, that may be the most difficult thing I've ever seen on planet Earth. Like, I don't know how people do this, Yeah. And then, next thing you know, I was at BOLIC at the end of August, standing out there at 211 Infantry in the Fort Benning heat and being like, well, I'm here now.
Here I am.
So, here I am. So ROTC was definitely a blur. I mean, I love my time at Washington State, so I'm really happy that she's been contacted by them. It's a great place to go to school. But so it definitely was a blur. And the next thing you know, I was at BOLIC and started the ride.
Yeah. What did it meet your expectations? Like, I'm sure you had certain expectations about how it was going to be as you went in. But what were those initial impressions? Like, did it meet your expectations?
For ROTC, it all did. Just because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, okay. I figured there was going to be, structure and discipline and things of that nature. But I mean, we were doing PT Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's like snowing, 10 degrees. We're going on 5-mile runs. So, I mean, and that's kind of what I expected, right? I was like, I want to be an infantryman. I want to join the Army. And that's exactly what I thought. And
so you must have had a good NCO then as your senior military instructor, and a pretty good, if not decent, professor of military science, if the things that they were showing you were what you ended up getting yourself into in the Army.
Yes, we did. We had that senior NCO billet was always for a Special Forces NCO. Okay. And so we always had a Green Beret sitting in that seat, and they were very influential on me. Master Sergeant Baca and Master Sergeant Crab were the two that I had, and they were awesome. And then we had an infantry captain, a Ranger Tab captain from the Washington National Guard, actually. Yeah. Captain Blair. He's still in, Major Blair now. He's over there at JBLM. But that left those guys left a big impression on me. Yeah. And they didn't necessarily guide me to that. They really confirmed, like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. Good. And I remember filling out my, branch application, basically, my wish list for branch. Mm-hmm. And I was a strong Ranger. I was a strong cadet. I wouldn't say I was the smartest guy. I think I was like literally dead heat average, like middle exactly in my year group. And so I'm like, well, all I want to do is be in the infantry. If I don't get the infantry, I literally have no clue what I'm going to do. Like, I just know that that's where I'm supposed to be. So I ADSO'd for it. And in my head, I was like, well, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter to me if I'm giving more time, because I know that's what I want to do. And, honestly, like, I'm grateful that I did that, because it was exactly what I wanted to do. So, so that was kind of my ROTC journey and the people that were impactful on me.
Yeah. And then you go to, did you choose the 25th Infantry Division, like, right off the bat? Or you knew that's where you were going?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say right off the bat. So, we did a wish list for branch, and then we got our, I want to say, if I remember correctly, we got our branch, and then we did wish list for duty station. Mm-hmm. And that I did not know anything about. Okay. So I did what everyone else does on my wish list, put Germany, Italy, and Hawaii. Yeah. And then I think I had like Fort Stewart, Fort Campbell, Fort Bragg, and then Fort Lewis. I think that was like my top 7. And why it was in that order, I could not tell you. But I think I like looked up like where Fort Stewart was and saw it was in Savannah, and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. So I put it there.
Yeah, it's close.
And so then, I commission, I get to Benning. I still didn't have my post. And all the West Point guys did, right? They do post night. They show up, they knew where they were going. And I hadn't yet. And a lot of the ROTC guys didn't know yet. And so I just reached out to, I believe her name was LaTanya Gentry up at HRC at the time, who managed like all the new butter bars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, can you like tell me, where I'm going? And, she emails back. She's like, you're going to Hawaii. Because in my head leading up to that, backstory, I was like, oh, dude, I did not finish top of my year group.
Mm-hmm.
I was average. Like I somehow weaseled my way into the infantry, but I am screwed on, post. And so I was like, I'm probably going to go. I don't know where I'm going to go. I had no clue. I was very confident I was not going to get Germany, Italy, and Hawaii, because talking to the West Point guys, they're like, dude, those are so hard to get.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden the email comes over and she's like, you're going to Hawaii. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, no way, this is great. So then, I allowed the external influences, right, to get to my head. And, a lot of my friends were going to the 82nd, 10th Mountain, 101st. They're like, oh man, like you need to go to these units. They're awesome.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I'll email her. I'll trade Hawaii. Everyone wants Hawaii. I'll get whatever other unit I want because I've got the one that everybody wants.
Right.
So this time, the person that replied was a captain. And I wish, because it would be just a great life lesson, really, that I had like saved the email, like screenshotted it and printed it and framed it. I won't repeat exactly what was said, but it said something along the lines of, Joe, comma, space, F off, period. You're going to Hawaii, period. Sincerely, Captain, so-and-so. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and then lo and behold, it was like one of the biggest blessings in my life, right?
Yeah.
Classic. I felt like I knew what was best for me, and God obviously had a better plan. And I'm eternally grateful that I was told to F off by that captain and was able to go to Hawaii, because that experience was phenomenal.
Yeah. I feel like everybody thinks that like the post that they're asking for, that everybody's asking for it. But there's other people, like in my case, I asked for Fort Bragg. Like that was my number one. I wanted to go to the 82nd Airborne Division to be a second lieutenant. And then there was, when I got to Bolick, I would assumed everybody wanted the same. And there was so many people that were like, no way, I'm not going up there. Like it's too hard. Or if you don't have a Ranger tab, you're not even allowed to go there. And, I still got to make it through Ranger school. These are the people that I was going through with. I was like, I don't have to go to Ranger school. And so they're like, well, that's easy for you. Then you can go to the 82nd, But it's so interesting how different people want different things, whether it's different branches, whether it's different places to go in the world. Some people, no way would they want to go overseas. No way. And other people is like, that's the first thing. And I saw the same thing in the 173rd when I was in Italy. We think everybody wants to come to Italy, but there was some people that said no way. And then there was people that didn't make it through Ranger school, and they quickly emailed Miss Gentry, and they said, hey, I was not successful at Ranger school. Do you have anything for me somewhere else? And I remember when I was a battalion XO, every class I used to ask for a sergeant, hey, who's the 4 best infantry officers? And he would give me 4 names, and then I would send those names to Miss Gentry, and she would send them, how would you like to go to the 173rd? And because there was always somebody that was falling out, that was coming out and wasn't going to come to the 173rd anymore for whatever reason. They didn't want to move. They weren't successful at Ranger school. They got hurt in airborne school. One of those things is going to make it for a rough life out in the 173rd and in an airborne unit. And so we were always having to kind of fill our spots. Why not fill them with great people?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, absolutely. And I think especially the career course taught me also, right? I show up to captain's career course and I was like, man, there's no way that you could have convinced me to go anywhere other than to another light unit, right?
Yeah.
And I get there, and then you're talking to people, and they're like, why would I ever go to a light unit? I'm going heavy. I'm going striker,
Yeah.
and you realize, like, you're right. Like, people's passions lie in different spots, and really just like grow where you're planted. Because I'm a firm believer that, especially for someone going to their first unit, like it can be really challenging for a lot of folks because, the Army gives you this expectation. It shows you, it does a very good job. And, your initial courses of showing you what right looks like and what to expect and telling you what the standard is. And if you show up to a spot and you're not meeting that standard, just do your best to fix it, right? Just grow where you're planted. Just give your best every day and water the grass that you're in control of, right? That you can influence. And you'll very rapidly find that it could become that dream unit that you wanted to be a part of in the first place.
Yeah. There's so many directions that I kind of want to take our conversation, like I want to, some parts I want to skip right towards and because your time in the 25th Infantry Division and your time in the 101st and the things that you learned kind of from leaders. There's so many different ways that we can kind of take it, right? But what I really want to start off with is like a combination of your time as a junior officer here in the 25th Infantry Division, right? And what were some of the things that inspired you that said, this is the kind of thing, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is the kind of leadership I was looking for that is inspiring. What were some of those things as a junior officer that kind of inspired you those first few years? Is where I kind of want to start off with.
So, yeah, that's a really good question. There's a number of things. And, I think a lot of times people are inspired by what they see, right? Whether it's videos or posters or, whatever the case may be with that. I think that inspires a lot of people. For me, there were specific individuals that inspired me, right? The role models that I had that inspired me from, other company commanders, other platoon leaders. I had friends that were just inspiring people, right? Like the amount of effort that they gave, how good they were at their profession was inspiring. Some of these company commanders and how they carried themselves, how they spoke in public, how they looked at problems. Like Tom Boggiano is a great example, inspired me. And then, people like you, like Colonel Mayo, and then like at the time, Major Caldwell, were extremely inspiring to me. Not because of what you guys were, right? It wasn't the position that you held that was inspiring. It was who you were in that position, right? And how you handled yourself in that position that I found inspiring, right? It wasn't that you were like the squadron commander of 214 Cav. It was that you were the squadron commander of 214 Cav and you always had a smile on your face. You were never panicked or upset at people. You enjoyed coming into work every single day and you loved being around people and you loved what you did and you found a way to make good out of even the worst situations and you found a way to make great events and things even better, right? That's what inspired me, was looking at people that could do that. And that was what I wanted to emulate, right?
Yeah.
Guys like at the time now, General Van Antwerp, I mean, like he was able to do that. Colonel Mayo was able to do that. Major Batul was able to do that. You were Major Caldwell. That's what inspired me there. And then being able to have that trickle down influence, right? It's like I saw that and then I interacted with my friends in 214 or in 121 or in 127, that had touched that. And they were the same way. It rubbed off on them. And I saw the trickle down effect in real time. And that was, to me, what was inspiring. And, watching your soldiers be successful, right? Like watching people that I was tasked with leading and working with that went on to achieve their goals and accomplish things that they had set out to do or become these really highly looked upon people within an organization, and knowing that at some point in their journey that I was able to be a part of that and able to help them get there was inspiring, right? It made me want to continue that. Like, how many more people can I help? How many more people can we get to achieve this?
Yeah.
Those were the things to me that I think inspired me most, especially at the 25th.
Yeah. So you talked about how you watched what a lot of people were doing, right? When you made the transition from being like a platoon leader to a scout platoon leader, and you got to be you were leading a group of people, and then you went to the brigade staff, right? So you were up on the brigade staff, helping Colonel Mayo with everywhere he would go. You got to witness some things from a totally different lens that a lot of times like a first lieutenant or junior officer doesn't get to see. How did your mindset change? Did you see things maybe seeing behind the curtain? Did that kind of open your eyes to a different style of leadership or what those people were doing?
Completely. And again, going back to blessings, like one of the greatest blessings I've ever received was the opportunity for that job, to have that job, because they showed me a totally different, it wasn't a different lens to view things from. It was a completely different angle to view things from, right? It's not about, we don't have to get mad at people and yell and scream and holler and make a big fuss. Like the way to accomplish these problems is to inspire people and to teach them every step of the way, and to give them all the room that you can for them to make a mistake that they can then learn from, impart to other people, and then improve and grow on. To be positive in everything that you're doing, and to impart that onto other people, right? To acknowledge the things that are negative, right? To acknowledge those things. I think it's important. As one of the important things I saw was that they acknowledged when things weren't going well, right? It wasn't just like, no, it's all great. They acknowledged when things weren't going well, and they said, hey, look, it's not great now, but it's going to be. We're going to make it that way. It's going to be awesome, and it's because of you guys. Like a phrase that Colonel Van said that stuck with me legitimately every day of my life since, was the relentless pursuit of excellence in everything that we do, right? It wasn't, and he said it too. He's like, nowhere in that sentence did I say that we are good. Nowhere in that sentence did I say that we're going to be the best. Nowhere in that sentence did I say, that the expectation is excellence, right? It's just, we're going to be better tomorrow than we were today. And we're going to be better today than we were yesterday. And it's all about the journey and having a positive outlook on that. And that, I think, were some of the biggest lessons that I learned, because that's not just the Army, that's life, that's adulthood, that's manhood, that's all these things that I was just so lucky, just so blessed, again, to have that chance.
Yeah, I feel like we had a special team, but I also, when I have these conversations with people from a lot of different organizations that I've been to, I've said the same thing about how I feel blessed to have been around those people. When you have that kind of outlook, that kind of optimism, that kind of inspirational leadership, right? But it's not always perfect, right? I'm sure that there was some examples of like what not to do, or there was some examples of situations that were draining, right? What were some of the things that people don't talk about a lot that are just absolutely draining, that are like, they suck the life out of you, that if those kind of situations had happened more often than not, like I'm not sure, even with this level of optimism that you have, things would have turned out or would have been the way they were. Do any of those things kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, there's a few things. And, again, I was kind of like saved by the bell, by going up to that job, right? Like I was in a pretty negative state, to be honest. I was just very pessimistic, very negative on my outlook of things. And some of the stuff that stands out to me that, going into that job, and then obviously was there and realized that there was a whole other side of the world that I had seen. But I think for junior, I can only speak from my perspective. And that's what with some of the stuff I really want to make clear is that I'm speaking from the perspective of, a lieutenant, a captain, and some of like the junior NCOs and at the company level, was, that the draining stuff was not understanding how some of this stuff played into the broader picture, right? It was oftentimes when I was, especially as a lieutenant, it was difficult to see, like, how is what we're doing right now contributing to lethality or making this organization better, or, improving people or giving people opportunity. And that's like, if you know the why, the how is easy is another thing I always
Yeah.
like to say. And I think oftentimes we lack the why. And it's really, really frustrating for people because they can't envision how what they're doing is important. They can't envision how what they're doing is helpful, how it's contributing to forward progress. And when you can't do that, all of a sudden, then it becomes, well, this is just pointless. This is dumb. This is stupid. Like, what are we doing?
Right.
And I think when people start asking that question, what are we doing here? That's when it gets really negative really fast. And young leaders and young soldiers, where they don't necessarily have the life experience or the personal experience and the foresight to understand how those things fit or may fit, or to understand that, hey, it's going to get better. It can spiral really, really quick. And that was something that I think it was really, really draining. And then, like going back to not understanding how, like, this is contributing to lethality or betterment of the organization, because, we all signed up to be here, and we all signed up to do that job, as an infantryman. And I don't understand how what we're doing right now is contributing to that. In fact, from the lens of a junior officer, sometimes they view it as taking away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very discouraging for them. Very, very discouraging for them.
Do you think when it's like, when it's discouraging, whether it's for, and you, again, you can only speak from what you're feeling in your experiences, right? And is it the ability to explain why or how it contributed, or the fact that what we're doing isn't contributing towards lethality? We know it isn't. So we're not asking you as an officer to go down and tell your soldiers, like, it's not that you didn't understand it. It's that what you were doing was not contributing to lethality. You knew it, they knew it, and there's no way to paint a different picture. Which one kind of resonates more?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's two answers there. For something like, as we remember, Macau, right? I love the Macau example, which, for those listening that may not know exactly what Macau is, it was a very large operation to divest a bunch of pre-existing equipment that existed in 2nd Brigade 25th ID to make room for inbound new equipment. And to get a lot of legacy stuff off the books that we didn't need to have. And it was an all hands on deck operation that took a lot of time and energy. And with something like that, hey, Macau doesn't directly contribute to lethality, and so when you're doing the evaluations on the equipment, and then the XO sending it over to the unit that's supposed to accept it, and they don't accept it within 30 days, so then everything gets kicked back, and then they have to reevaluate everything. It gets really frustrating, and everyone's just like, what the heck is going on? But, not understanding that at the end state, hey, we didn't know, like, hey, this is all the awesome pieces of equipment that we're going to get that is going to completely change the way we do everything. They're really, really effective pieces of equipment. It's cutting edge. It's brand new. And we have to get rid of this stuff in order for the Army to give us that. That is a totally different conversation than, hey, divest everything.
Right.
And from that, again, that junior soldier NCO officer level, if they didn't know that, right? Like, I was lucky enough to be at brigade and I knew it all, right? Because I'm sitting in the meetings and I'm like, oh, this makes complete sense. Okay. But I know that they didn't necessarily know, because it gets lost in translation. There's so much information that has to go. And it's not anyone's fault. I don't think that anyone is ever, like, hoarding information and being like, they don't need to know, right? Like, that's not the intent. It's just that that needs to be prioritized, I think, right? And the big picture, they do need to know, because they're smart people and they want to understand how this is working. And then when you have something that everyone knows and acknowledges isn't contributing to lethality at all, I'm a firm believer that leadership needs to acknowledge that, right? That's an unpopular thing to say for a lot of people to hear. But I do believe that leaders need to say, hey, I get that this is not in any way, shape, or form what we want to prioritize right now, or what anybody wants to be doing. But here's why we're doing it. And once we get it done, we're going to get after everything else. And people are going to respond to that way better because they don't look at it and say, oh, well, they're part of the problem. They're not even acknowledging it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy for these junior officers and leaders and soldiers to get in this mindset of like, look, the leadership doesn't even acknowledge that this is, are we the only ones that think this way? The answer is no. I think a lot of people think that way, but you gotta for them, you gotta acknowledge it. And I know sometimes that sounds like it's going against, what you were ordered to do. It's not, because we're all going to do it at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not they know why they're going to do it. But are they going to do it with a happy heart and understanding why? Or are they going to be mad about it and grumpy about it and sit there and think about getting out of the Army?
Yeah,
I think those are two very different, avenues.
It contributes towards being committed versus being compliant. It's like, just go down to just do this paperwork. Like, you don't need to worry about why we're doing it. Just do it. And that becomes like compliance, and that can only work for so long or so often. But being committed to the big mission, the big win, why it is what we're doing, it is the hard right. It takes a lot of time, and I can see where a lot of people start to they're like, why do I always got to explain why? Well, you need to. We all need to. We all want to feel that same way as you go. What else did you learn when you left the 25th and you went to the Captain's Career Course, and now you're heading out to a new assignment? What did you take with you from what you learned here? And you said, I'm going in now. I've seen this different angle. And when I go to the 101st and I'm coming in there now as a captain, getting ready to be a company commander, what did you go in there with a different head on your shoulders, essentially, when you got there?
Yeah, much different outlook. The biggest thing was that anything in the Army, in any organization, can be accomplished with the right culture. I genuinely believe that. I 100% through and through. I believe that with the right culture, you can achieve anything. And I firmly believe that. I think you can overcome manning problems and equipment issues and crammed schedules if you have the right culture in an organization. And that culture is completely solely based in people, 110%. When I went to the 101st, my goal, I was asked in an interview question, as a company commander, define success. And that's a hard question.
Yeah.
That can be a very, very hard question. And my answer was that whatever company that I've been charged with leading, by the time I leave, it's going to be a place where every single soldier, NCO, officer, and their families are happy to come to work every day, are proud to be a part of, and want to be a part of that team, and are happy being there. And if I can do that, if I can foster an organization where every single person in the organization feels that way, it does not matter what you ask us to do, we will achieve and we will accomplish that mission. I genuinely believe that, and still believe that. And that was a big change from, when I was a lieutenant. I felt like there was a lot more superficial stuff to it, right? Like, oh, well, we just need better X or better Y or more Z, right? And in some cases that's true. And we can touch on some of that stuff, because I do think there are some issues there. But I do believe that over all of it, that a culture like that, you can achieve anything at all.
I don't think we'll get any pushback when people are starting to understand and believe that the right culture, can achieve just about anything that's out there. That is starting to catch on, but not everybody's not everybody understands how to do that. Right. And I think the pendulum swung a little bit too far to the right. Like when we said we got to take care of people and culture, and it's all about, there was a lot of people that believed like taking care of people is simply giving them the day off or giving them more time off, and they would say things like, go spend more time with your family, work-life balance. Like that's going to make a good culture. Well, what it did was it made a culture of people that were happy to go away from work, but then they weren't good at what they do. They're not ready,
Right.
And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that join the Army to be ready. They join the Army to be good at what they join the Army to do. And so that was not rewarding to them to say, go back and hang out with my family. A lot of those soldiers live in the barracks. They don't have a family. They wanted to go to the
Right.
range. They didn't want
Yeah.
they didn't want another day off. They wanted to go to the
Right.
range. They wanted you to get them the ammo to go and shoot. That's what
Yes.
they wanted to go and do. They didn't want more time off. Is what some
No.
of those soldiers wanted.
Yeah, it did. It swung really far in that direction, and I mean, you touched on it. What I noticed with that initiative, it was ambiguous, and a lot of people interpreted it in that way of, oh, hey, like, don't be as hard on them, let them off. Like, well, no. Taking care of your people is, like General Gerard said, it is empowering them in every way that you physically can for them to maximize their potential, be it in your unit, in someone else's unit, in life. And that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that may be letting them go home from work early because their wife had an emergency appointment and they have to go home and watch their kid on post, and it's 3 p.m. and you okay, hey, just go, man. No worries. Sometimes it's, hey, we're going to do that extra range day. Hey, sometimes it's giving tough love because you're trying to enforce that standard so they understand what the right way is.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like, if we go to war tomorrow, is anybody going to care about, missing that detail or this initiative? No. What we're going to care about is the training that we did to prepare us.
That's right.
And that's taking care of your people to survive through that test. And so it's a mix of both of those things. And it comes back again, knowing your people, knowing who they are. What do they want to achieve? What's going on in their life? Who are they? Who do they want to be? Where are they from? What drives them? Why did they join? What do they want to do next? What do they want to see accomplished within the organization? Right? What direction do they want to see the organization go? I think that's an incredibly powerful question to ask a specialist. Hey, if you could pick any direction, like what direction would you want to see this company go? And it would be amazing to hear all of their answers, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would probably be very inspiring,
For sure.
to be honest with you. And then all of a sudden you'd figure out, like, oh, they don't want more time to go sit in the barracks and play video games.
Right.
They don't want more time to sit on their phones. They want to do really realistic, tough training. Not, a 50-mile foot march, but something different than that standard squad live fire that they've been doing the last 4 years.
Right.
That's more realistic, that incorporates more assets, or, whatever the case may be. I think or talk to the squad leaders about that. Where do they want to see the organization go? What does that look like? And working as a team together as one and communicating that vision so everyone understands. And I think that would be very powerful. And I think that's what it was about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that initiative was really about, was do everything in your power to maximize your people's potential. That's what that meant, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. So you shared a lot of things right there about maximizing people's potential, things that you had hoped to do when you were a company commander, things that you watched, and now you go. Now, you didn't touch upon it, but like, you got to command like Easy Company, like the legendary company in the 101st, right? And so there was a ton of history. It was that you could get people behind, like the people that had been in this unit before us as you took them. What was one of your favorite moments when you, as the company commander of Easy Company in the 101st, where you were able to kind of see that come to fruition with the people in your company?
That's a really good question. I loved, will always love that organization forever. I'm wearing the hat right now.
Yeah.
Phenomenal people, like unbelievable human beings in that organization. But to answer your question, there was a few moments. One of them was we went on a training event to West Texas with 5th Special Forces Group as like their Op 4. And we did a raid at the end, and on like a mount site on a village. and the wheels up time was all screwed up. The landing zones were all wrong. The houses, the buildings were misnumbered. We made a plan. Like the whole company was dispersed. Like I was completely away from my XO and first sergeant when we made the plan. We're like sending pictures of maps back and forth, and then we had like 30 minutes before wheels up to go over everything real quick. And it was flawless. Flawless. Not because of any decision that I made, right? I was just,
Right.
Making sure that like the bumpers on the bowling lane were up, and the ball never bumped into the bumpers, right? I just kind of let that organization go, and the platoon leaders and the squad leaders and the team leaders and the soldiers and first sergeant, they just did everything that they needed to do. The communication was great, and it just went like clockwork. It was one of those operations where it just goes the way it needs to go, and it just happened the way it needed to happen, and there was no real hiccup, even though it was all hiccups, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole operation was hiccups, but it didn't feel like it. It just felt smooth the whole time. And that was one. And then we did a fire support coordination exercise. And I was supposed to be a groomsman in a wedding for one of my best friends. And so, we're supposed to go to the field Monday. This is like Thursday evening, we get the order. I go on a whiteboard. I grab my FSO, my XO, my first sergeant, and I'm like, hey, look, I got to go to this wedding in Washington. And I just drew a COA sketch with some phase lines. I was like, this is what I think it should look like. What do you guys think? Like, hey, yeah, it looks good. I'm like, all right, I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to email you guys as much as I can, on the flight and everything. But you guys kind of got control of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you guys are going to have to make some of this plan. My vision, what I'm thinking. And it wasn't super in depth. It was pretty broad.
Right,
I was like,
right.
hey, this is what I'm looking, this is what I think. And I didn't hear a peep from him. I show up on Monday morning. I land at midnight. I get in my car at 1 a.m., grab my rucksack, get up to Fort Campbell by 3 a.m. I'm going out to the field. And then we sat down real quick and briefed me on this plan. And it was just like clockwork. And that was when I was like, these guys don't need me, they don't need me. These guys have got it. You know what I mean? Like I was proud of them. Right. And it was like, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing about how well my XO did in all these different briefs, all these different rehearsal briefs, and how well my first sergeant did in all these rehearsal briefs, and the platoon leaders and how great they were. And I'm like, I didn't even hear from them. You know what I mean? They're like, the commander's at a wedding. He didn't want to deal with this stuff. We got it. We're fine. And they were. And that was, in my eyes, the signal to me that, the plan was working, right? My vision was working, because I told him, like, one of the things I want to achieve is that you guys don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
Like I could leave and it doesn't matter, because the culture and the methods and everything is and the standard is so ingrained in this organization that whether I come or go, it doesn't matter. You're not reliant on me to achieve. And that was their operation. They went off a COA sketch and commander's intent, and then they ran with it. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It went great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
there's so much that you probably did. Well, so much I know that you did in order to make that successful, like ahead of time, like the training that comes, to get to the point where you can execute that, a simple COA sketch, a simple plan, and then it can go off like that. There's so much that they need to understand, the way that you think and the way that you talk and the way that you understand things, and, the face-to-face interactions that you've had with them so many times before. Is the reason that I'm sure, you were able to kind of do that. The next area that I kind of want to go into is, like, we talked about the Army. What is it about the Army that when you started saying, hey, this is the way I want to live my life, this is the things that I want to do in my life, and whether those continue to happen in the Army or they happen outside the Army, where you started to say, this is the way I want to live my life and this is the way I want to do things, where you said, that's going to be in the Army or that's going to be outside the Army? It's starting to get towards your transition time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that the moment that I started to really dig into the decision of whether or not I wanted to get out was the moment that I felt like the Army had put me on the track it wanted me on and that I couldn't get off. And I mean to say that in that, that I didn't have options to pursue things that I was passionate about and wanted to pursue. That certain opportunities were either over or were not available to me. And that, the Army it felt as if the Army had made its decision for me. Hey, this is what you're going to be. This is what you're going to go do. And this is how it's going to work for you. And that I didn't have a lot of control or say in that to pursue the things that I was really passionate about. And, to make that more clear to people that listen to this, I was just really, really passionate about leading people. I loved soldiers. I loved NCOs. I loved the operational infrastructure of a rifle. I loved all that. I loved it. I mean, that was like, I loved it. I mean, I was so passionate. I still am so passionate about it. And, that ended eventually, right? I mean, company command ends, and all of a sudden when that's over, what options do you have? What are you looking at being able to do and go achieve? And I wanted to hold on to that as long as I could. And, there were places that I wanted to go that weren't an option for me. And that was when I got both of those feelings of, hey, a lot of the things I'm passionate about aren't going to be available to me in the future. And, maybe not the near future. There was some more, like localized command opportunities that I had been provided, which I'm grateful for, because that means someone was thinking highly of me, and I'm very appreciative of those things. But in the long run beyond that, like, where was I going to be? Mm-hmm. And I just didn't see myself having the opportunity to be in a role like that I was extremely passionate about. And then I started to think, well, okay, if that's not how it looks for me, then, if I did go down that route anyway, how would I feel? And the last thing that I wanted was to be that person that junior leaders were looking at, and they looked at me and they were like, he doesn't like what he's doing. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't like his job. And they're working for me. I like, nobody that has joined the United States Army signed up for that.
Yeah.
Nobody. Especially lieutenants and captains, right? Who are just all fire and brimstone and piss and vinegar and just want to get after it. And then you got this guy that's a wet blanket up there that is like, clearly just doesn't like what he's doing. And why are you here? Right? Because now you're contributing to all the problems that I was seeking to rid from the Army. Right. And elements of that role, those roles that I found conflicting with me personally in terms of how I saw stuff. And so a lot of times when people get out of the Army, it's not one thing, right? It's not one event that's like, boom, all right, I'm getting out. It's a very slow buildup and slow trickle. And then there is one event that breaks that one straw that breaks that camel's back. And, for me, it was coming to terms with opportunities and what was available and what wasn't, and where I wanted to be and what I was passionate about and what I wasn't. And the road that I saw that the Army had laid for me and very clearly said that I was going to be on. Yeah. And that to me was, I didn't want to be the guy that was just passionate about what he was doing. And I wanted to be in a position to where I could pursue things that I wanted to pursue, or pursue dreams, or pursue aspirations that I had. Yeah. And, I still think being a battalion commander would be awesome. I don't know if my brigade commander would have loved me. I kind of view things in a different way and stuff like that, but it would have been cool. But, for me, it's like, that's 10 years away at a minimum from, where I'm at right now, 12 or 13 probably. And that's a long time and a long road that is not promised, and so that was it. If that makes sense, I hope I explained that well. And if not, I can really go into more detail.
I think it's hard to explain. It's hard because it's different for everybody, and most of the people, that we talk to, or most of the people that you are surrounded by, most of the people have made the decision to stay because they were successful in the jobs that they did. Therefore, they were rewarded for doing a good job, and then they wanted to do the next thing. Because if you want to go be a field grade officer, you're going to stay, right? And you're going to say, I want to go do what the people above me, I watched them do. Or I want to go do what the people I watched above me do, but I want to do it differently. I want to do it my way. And so what we don't do is we don't often talk to the people that, or hear from the people that chose not to continue on, that chose not to do it. We very rarely, few organizations do exit interviews. And if they do them, I don't know if they do them well, where they ask, why did you not choose, to come back? Why are you choosing to get out? We always focus on the people that chose to stay and as we go forward. And I think often we attribute the reason people chose not to continue on was because they didn't get promoted or they weren't successful at this level. So therefore they won't be successful at the next level. And I'm starting to think about how that's not the way that we should be looking at this from a big picture standpoint. It's like once you try something and you're not successful, like you're never given another chance. Like that's not life. Yeah. Like there's nowhere else in life where that is the case. There's so many stories about people as they get older, they finally start to figure out things in their life in their 30s and in their 40s, and then they become something. It's such a young person's game, the Army, where you get one chance to kind of do it, and if you don't do it to perfection, then you're out. Or you're discouraged from continuing on, or not given another chance, if you will. I think it's hard, Joe. I think it's hard to explain. I think it is.
Yeah. It is hard, and it for me it wasn't lack of like I could have stayed. I had a successful company command. I was my brigade had kind of slated me to go be an HHC commander, and very very grateful and gracious to the people that had written my evaluations. I had a future in the Army, right? I did, but it just wasn't the future that I saw for myself. And being a field grade officer, a brigade XO somewhere or a battalion S3 just was not something I saw for myself that I would love, right? And as much as I loved the thought of I'm going to go to that organization and I'm going to improve it and do it the way I know how to do it, sometimes that's a roll of the dice, right? You don't always get to, you don't always end up in an organization where those methods are accepted or where people want to see that from you or where people want things done that way or are okay with that. Mm-hmm. And that's really difficult for me as well, right? Is like, I kind of have a recipe based on my personality and experiences for some success. Not for me personally, but for organizationally, right? Like, I don't know, maybe I might've been terrible. You may hear from people that listen to this podcast and be like, he was like the worst commander of all time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I can assure you that is not the case.
Thank you. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? That was what I saw was like, hey, look, this is the route the Army has said to you. I want you to go to a division staff in row, then go be, eventually a battalion XO and S3, and then potentially a brigade XO and S3. And I want you to go on another European deployment, and I want you to go to 30 more JRTC rotations, and that's what I want from you. And I just didn't see that for myself in that role. And I didn't want to be a burden on an organization that, where I show up there and I'm unhappy and I'm dispassionate, because the people that are working there don't deserve that. They deserve people that are passionate. And for the people that are out there that are and want to do that and are passionate, please stay in the Army and please go do that, because that is what our people deserve. That's right. What America's sons and daughters deserve. That's what everyone signed up for. That's the people that we want to work for, and that should treat their subordinates well, with respect. Like there's always those stories of going to a staff and people are like, oh, I got treated like garbage. That's totally the wrong answer. How cool would it be to be like, brigade staff or battalion staff was awesome? As a platoon leader, like you show up in a company and you're like, I actually really loved battalion staff. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I got treated really well. Everyone was super nice to me and tried to develop me as best they could. But like, how many battalion staffs out there are like that? I would argue very few.
Yeah.
And that may not be because intentionally, right? I'm willing to say a lot of it isn't intentional, but imagine how powerful that is.
Right.
These
when it is that way.
From brigade staff. Yeah, these captains coming from brigade staff into command are like, every second of me being in this unit has been awesome because I love that brigade staff. It was actually fun. And, then the stigma of, oh, staff work is terrible, being on staff is horrible, being a major is no fun goes away. Right. Because the culture and stuff like that, going back to culture. And so, it's hard to explain because you're right, it is different per person. And that was my overarching, why. There's a lot of other things that led up to that, but that was really the straw that broke my camel's back. Was I felt that the Army told me that, hey, this is the road that you will be on to be that, battalion and brigade and division level field grade officer in the conventional Army. And that is the only route that I'm going to let you take. Right. And I think that's a big issue with the officer corps, and it's the year group windows that it has. It's like you said, you got one shot for some of this stuff, and that you get that shot if the stars align and the timing is right and the right person is in charge of you, and the right person is in charge of them, and they all see the things the same way, and right. And like for special forces selection, like SFAS, for me, I really wanted to go to SFAS. But by the time I turned my paperwork in after we got back from that JRTC rotation with 2nd Brigade, because of COVID, my year group was closed and they weren't accepting people from year group 17 anymore. Right. So I tried to turn in my paperwork. I was under the impression this window was going to be open for 3 years. I'm 10 months in. I turned my paperwork in. The reason I didn't go was because I was like, hey, I'm committed to my platoon. I got to lead these guys. We're going to go to JRTC. We're going to knock it out of the park. And then after that, I'm going to turn in my packet and go to selection. I thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah. By staying loyal to the people, the majority of whom I picked to be there, right? How that would not be cool for me to bounce to selection for Forge, Yeah. And they're like, hey, we're not accepting your packet. We're not accepting anyone from officers from your year group anymore. It's too backed up. COVID's backed it up. We can't get enough people through the pipeline, so you cannot, you can't attend selection unless you have a letter of recommendation from an 06 or higher special forces officer. I didn't know an 06 or higher special forces officer that was going to write me a letter of recommendation. So I was like, okay, well, that's over for me. I didn't even get to try. And if I had gone and they were like, hey, dude, you're bad, we don't want you. Okay, that's fine. I can live with that. That's totally cool. But I didn't even get the chance to try, and all because of this bizarre timeline and thing that happened. And, there's a lot of stuff like that. And it happens to a lot of people that way. And I think a lot of people get hurt by that, right? Of I just wanted the chance to try, and I didn't even get the chance to try because of this arbitrary timeline, or this piece of paper was turned in too late, or whatever reason, or this sat on someone's desk for too long, or I waited too long on this, and now this window's closed. And it's for officers especially, that can be really infuriating because a lot of their dreams, goals, and aspirations hinge on, someone writing their name on a piece of paper that they may never even remember writing their name on, right. And it hinges on that. And if those stars don't align, you may never get an opportunity that you wanted for potentially for some guys their whole lives, or, adult lives, or whatever. And wow. That can be really, really infuriating, and so that was a big deal to me. Whenever I got these lieutenants, it was like, I don't care what it is you want to do. Whether it's get out of the Army, stay in, I want to know, because I will do everything in my God-given ability to get you there. I'll do anything. I don't care. Who do I have to call? Who do I have to email? Who do I have to harass to get you to where you want to be? And that you've earned that right to try. You may not earn the right to be there, but by working hard and showing up every day and doing the right things and being a good person and being that leader, I think you earn the right to try, and that was a big deal to me, was just giving these guys the opportunity to try. giving them that chance to go try. I was very, very passionate about that. You know, going back to, again, General Gerard, you know, why are we not trying to let our people achieve their potential? I was so passionate about platoon leaders and XOs that I worked with directly or indirectly, like whatever I could do to help them pursue those dreams and achieve. And even if it didn't work, at least they knew, right? Like, we'll look at Captain Bocchi, how hard he tried to help me for an opportunity that had nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
You know, that may inspire them that, you know, later on down the line, they're doing it for somebody else that needs that help or needs that attention. You did it for me, you know, you did it for me. And like, that was a really hard day, you know, because I felt like I let you down, you know what I mean? And that was really, really hard on me, but you were so passionate about helping me. You didn't have to. Yeah. You know, you didn't have to take the time out of your day, and you're busy. I mean, you're a full bird colonel, you know, and you're taking the time out of your day because you're so passionate about something that has nothing to do with you, to helping me pursue my potential and dreams, you know? And that means so much to people. And I can say that because it meant so much to me. I will never forget that as long as I live. I will never forget that. I'll be grateful to the day I die because of that, right? And I'm so passionate about that, you know. And I think that the Army does its people, its junior officers and officers, a disservice by having those strict windows and arbitrary timelines and making things so finite and preventing them from, you know, potentially, you know, chasing opportunities that, you know, they may not make it to the end, but they should have the opportunity to try. And at the end of the day, how much better is the group of people going to be that you get? Because your pool's that much bigger, you know, and you get that many more people with that many more experiences to go through some of and pursue some of these opportunities. So, you know, that was another thing that really, really, really rubbed me the wrong way. What if that happened to me again? Right. You know, that was always going through my head. Well, you know, this happened to me a couple times, 2 or 3 times with this window and timeline. And, you know, what if I'm a major now and that happens to me again? Where am I going to be? You know, how might that look? Well, I don't know, you know, and it's, you know, then it all of a sudden becomes like, well, what if I don't have any options? You know, you spiral. And so, you know, that was another big piece for me. I'm sorry, I totally rambled there and went off on a tangent. I'm so sorry. But
please, you know, though, as you started going in there, you just unloaded so much with the strict windows and the timelines, things that I've been thinking about for a long time now, and things that as I've done all these episodes, the whole point of this podcast is to help leaders better understand what's driving people so that senior leaders and leaders like myself can help make decisions and make recommendations for the future of our Army, for recruiting and retention, right? There's so many things that you just said that I kind of want to dig into, unpack in any way, shape, or form. There's 2. The first one I want to ask is, this is just a quick one. And I ask you to kind of speculate because you're out of the Army now. But if there was a way for after, you know, company command or you know, you finished your company command, for somehow someone was to say, hey, and I'm totally spitballing, but like, we could open up your window. You could go to SFAS again. You could go to the Ranger Regiment. You're going to have to slide back a couple year groups, but like, you're not going to promote to major right now. That'll be later on, but you can try SFAS now as a captain with 4 years, 5 years, something like that. Would you do it? Is that something that would keep you?
I'd pack up my rucksack right now with the stuff I have left. I'd go to a surplus store to buy all the other things that I need, and I would go immediately without question. I would have gone immediately. There's no doubt in my mind. I would have immediately done it. And if had I made it, I totally would have stayed without a doubt.
Yeah.
No second. Yeah.
I said I was spitballing, but you're not the first person that I've asked that question to. And I've said, and they most of them answered the same way that you just said, which is, I would stay if these things, and you don't have to promote me, you don't have to pay me more. Yeah. You know, I'll incur more, but those options aren't even out there. And people would say, well, Matt, you don't understand. You don't understand all the second and third order effects that would happen if you let Captain Bocchi stay a captain for 4 more years. And I said, well, what? I'm sorry then. What second and third order effects don't know? I guess if maybe at my 40-year mark in the Army, I'll start to understand the second and third order effects. But with 30 years in the Army now, I'm not sure what they are. We're asking to retain quality talent. I'm telling you, these are the people that are quality. Let's find a way to let them do the things that they want to do in the service. They will make sacrifices, such as not get promoted, such as stay a certain rank for a longer period of time. And I do think that those are the ways to managing talent as we go forward, to give people a little bit longer time to do some of these jobs. If they did an average job as a company commander, why not give them a second chance somewhere else, or another chance? And you don't promote to major until you've done a successful command. It's not one try and then you're done. And then you're done. You can promote when you want to go on and be a battalion S3, battalion XO, and then you can move forward. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. Okay, so thank you. You answered that question. Here's my next one. Did people treat you differently once you said, I'm going to get out of the Army?
Some did, yeah, absolutely. 100%, yeah. The ones that didn't, I'm extremely grateful for, because I didn't change as a person, I just, that's a big question. Some people did, some people didn't. Some people that may not necessarily have known me very well or at all treated me differently than I think they otherwise would have. And it, more than anything, for people that have experienced that, solidifies your choice.
Yeah.
It just makes you more entrenched.
Right.
You're like, so what? And then you start to think, well, what was I to you before? Right? Was I like, the only thing about me that changed was the decision that I've decided to make for my life and my career. It doesn't affect you. And, the treatment is now different.
Yeah. When you talk about the treatment now, what treatment was different? Was it different duty positions? Was it, hey, go and do this because you're getting out of the Army? Or was it simply just the way that you interacted with people? What were some of those things that you felt?
Both. And again, it wasn't everyone. There were people there that was like, oh, you're getting out. Oh, cool. What are you going to go do? Like nothing changed. And they still, valued the experiences that I brought to the team and valued me for who I was and all those things. And thank God, those are wonderful people. And other people, it was like, oh, you're getting out, hey, go do that, and it's like, well, I think that there's more that I could bring to the team. I want to contribute, just because I decided to, make a career transition doesn't mean I want to completely stop contributing. I can help, I can do some of this stuff. No, just go do that. Like, okay. It's like, kind of like all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm a KD complete company commander that was told he was going to get a second company. And now all of a sudden it's like, you're treating me like I don't know anything and that I'm a problem more than anything, but the only thing I did was turn a couple pieces of paper in. I didn't change as a person, and my effort didn't change. Like, my motivations haven't changed.
Yeah.
And, and I knew that going in. It wasn't like that took me by surprise, right? I knew that it was going to be a mixed bag. It was just disappointing to see, because I just, treat others the way that you would want to be treated, right?
And it works. It's the same thing if I had flipped the script. If you had said, I'm staying in the Army, I want to be a field grade officer, mm-hmm. People treat you different that way. They say, okay, well then you got to go and do this job. And you're going to have to pay your dues, and you're going to have to do this because you said you wanted to do the next thing. So now you're getting treated differently as well. Like what has changed? Now all of a sudden it's like, well, if you want to do the next thing, then you're going to have to suffer, or you're going to have to do, you're going to have to pay your extra dues going forward. You're going to have to take this job. This is a job that we only give to people that promise to stay another 3 to 5 years. Then you can get this job and suffer.
Right. Yeah. And do you think that's encouraging to people that are on the fence?
No.
No, it's not. It's not. And it's a problem, and it feels like it's a conveyor belt is the easiest way to describe it. Some people find their way off that conveyor belt into different nooks and crannies, but most of the people, it's like, hey, you're on the conveyor belt until you decide to jump off. And that conveyor belt's going one direction, and it's got one intention for you, and that is what you're going to go do. And, I think it's a lot different, right? In 2010, it was a lot different. There's a war going on, there's deployments going on, and people are doing their jobs in combat, right? And now it's not that way. So, you've got to take people whose feels like their careers and experiences aren't validated and convince them that, going through that difficult, crappy job to go do this other, difficult, crappy job, right, is worth it, is worth it to do, is the right thing, that they need to go do it. And, by saying like, hey, you're going to go do this awful job and you're going to get treated poorly, I don't necessarily think that's the best plan of attack to get people to stay to do those roles,
Yeah.
And it's, again, like, I don't think I don't know if I have the answer to anything. I'm just speaking from the perspective of a captain and a lieutenant in the Army, right?
Yeah.
That didn't go to Afghanistan, that never went to Iraq, that, did the Pacific Rim deployments and did the deployments to Europe and had some different experiences than some more, seasoned people in the Army that did, go to Afghanistan and Iraq and have seen a bunch more stuff. The experiences of people my age and younger than me is different. And so they're going to view things from a different lens. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when we look at how do we convince them to stay, we have to look at those opportunities differently, because they're looking at it from a different perspective as well.
Yeah. I appreciate the fact that you're sharing this and you're opening up and you're willing to tell these things. I hope it's because, you trust me, you trust what it is that I'm doing, and the people that are listening are the leaders that give a shit. The ones that want to understand what people are thinking, because Joe, you were one of the best lieutenants that we had in the brigade. Right. And I'm sure you were if you were not the best, you were one of the best company commanders in that whole brigade. Right. And so you kept a lot of these things to yourself, or people keep these things and they hold these cards close to their vest, and they share it when they're on their way out, or once they are out. And so the goal is to get people to share these things so that we can better understand what's driving people nowadays, right? So that the leaders can hear it. They have to hear it. They have to listen to it. They have to acknowledge it, right? It's the 5 dysfunctions of a team, right? The pyramid, the tip of the pyramid is when people tell you what the problem is and you just refuse to do anything about it. So when people are telling you, they're telling us, this is what some of the challenges are. No, that can't be it. That person's disgruntled, or that person's not that good. That person didn't get picked. That person didn't get promoted. That's why they're complaining. And if that's the attitude, then that's not the people I want on my team, and that's not the team that I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of the people that are asking, the best people and the people that struggled as well, because it matters what everybody thinks and why they chose to serve and why they choose to continue to serve going forward. So thanks for opening up so much of that. There's so much to unpack there. There's so much to think about for future conversations that I'll have with people. There's 2 more areas that I kind of want to dive into before we land the plane with Joe Bocchi. And that is, what are you doing now that you've taken from your time in the military and you said, I love doing these things. It's the things that you started this whole conversation with that got you fired up, that got you inspired, that you're motivated for, that you're doing, that you're doing now on a daily basis with the team that you're a part of, that you took from the military. You took from your time in the Army, and they immediately became useful for you in what it is you're doing today.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm excited to answer that because I think for a lot of people, when they look at getting out of the Army, it's really scary. And there's a lot of people that aren't going to admit that, but they are fearful. And it's because they don't understand the answer to that question, right? They don't understand, like, does any of the stuff that I learned transfer over? I don't think it does. There's a ton of stuff that does. There's a ton of skills that I learned as an officer that do. And that's kind of why I ended up in the job that I'm in. I love solving problems. I love working in teams. I love, working with people from multiple organizations, putting them together to solve a problem. I love, pitching ideas and solutions to issues, and working with the people that have those problems toward the ultimate, end state, which is their success. And I learned how to do all of that in the United States Army. We may not have used the same language that they did, but it's all the same stuff, And the leadership aspect of it, I walked into the civilian workforce and I'm like, where can I go to lead people? I love it. I love it. And you meet all these people that talk to you and say, well, oh man, I don't really want to be in a leadership role. I don't really want to pursue that. And I'm like, why would you not? I can't even conceive of that. So some of the other stuff I am figuring out, I'm figuring out, I've got a lot of energy, obviously, and a lot of passion. And I'm trying to find a way to channel it. And I know that's going to be through public service of some kind. I don't know necessarily yet where. I've only been out, 3 weeks, but yeah. but I'm gonna find a spot. I don't know if it's gonna be maybe back in the government, maybe it'll be someplace else. But I want to serve my country. I want to serve the citizens of the United States in some capacity, and help veterans and people that are still in the Army. I think that was something I realized that I'm extremely passionate about is, veterans, obviously, whatever branch they come from, because once you make that jump, it's a big deal. And once you get out, and it can be really hard to transition over, and the people that help are the veterans. And so I want to help, people that are thinking about making that jump or are making that jump. And I want to help people that are still in, that is another passion of mine, is like, just because I got out of the Army doesn't mean I've all of a sudden become dispassionate about soldiers, or dispassionate about their problems, or dispassionate about, junior leaders and the issues that they face. I'm still extremely passionate about that. And I want to help them. I anybody that I can, I want to help. And, I want to provide whatever experience I can, probably from my mistakes. I'm extremely grateful for the things that you've said about me on this, because, when I look in the mirror, I just see Joe Bocchi, and, like Bo Jackson, when he's like, hey, when I die, on my gravestone, just say, here lies a ball player that received what he gave, and for me, it's just like, all I think on my tombstone is, here lies, Joe Bocchi. He cared and loved his country, that's really it, so thank you for those kind words. I just tried my best and to be the best person I could be for the people that deserved it,
Yeah, you sound like you got put through the Trivius Caldwell write your own obituary, lesson. When I remember when he gave that to me, he's like, this is something I did with a lot of the lieutenants. I was like, let me do that, and I went home and wrote my own obituary. Man, talk about like an opportunity, a lesson to kind of think like hard about what you want to be remembered for. So shout out to Trivius for write your own obituary one night. Try that if you haven't. Last area. This is where we do land the plane, and it's, it's the so what. It's like all the things that like we either haven't talked about or we kind of have talked about, and we're just kind of summarizing them. And I haven't done this a ton of times, but it's like, what? So what? For the people, there's three groups of people, right? There's the people that are just like you. They're the people that are getting ready to be company commanders or that are currently company commanders, right? Those are your teammates. There's the group of people that like you led. That's all the soldiers. That's your NCOs. Those are the people that are out there. The people that you lead. And then there's this group of people that lead you, and they're the leaders that are above you. And we often say things like, well, I've heard is that you can always fool your boss. Like you can always fool them. Like but you can sometimes fool your teammates, but you can absolutely never fool your subordinates. You can never fool like those things that are out there. But so those are like the three groups that I've always thought about, and it's like the people that you serve with, your teammates, the people that you lead, and then the people that lead you. Any one of those three, which one do you want to start with? That kind of, when you think about your either advice for them or that you want to be kind of remembered for that group.
So I'll start with the people that lead me. I'll go backwards, right? I'll start at the top and then go to the bottom. I think the so what is just care. Like that would be my message to them. Is just care about your people, right? It doesn't matter what they want to do, right? Like there's going to be another person that comes along that's great, right? Like if I left my organization, there's going to be another person that replaces Joe Bocchi that's probably better than Joe Bocchi, right? To be honest, it's in the song, the Army goes rolling along, right? So, the most fulfillment I ever received as a leader was when I saw people that were a part of my organization that I had in some way, shape, or form helped or empowered or enabled to achieve their maximum potential and their dreams, goals, and aspirations. And it made the organization better. It made me a better leader. It made that soldier grew, and nothing bad comes from that. And if I could impart anything, I promise, like you're going to find more fulfillment in doing that than anything in the world. And a bunch of people that are wildly more successful than I were in the Army and achieved way more are probably like, yeah, I get it, idiot. Like you're not telling me something I haven't already heard. But that's, the subordinates just want to know that you care. That lieutenant, that captain just wants to know that you care about them. Not Captain Bocchi, but Joe Bocchi. That's what they want to know. And it's really easy to see. And so demonstrate to them that you care by empowering them to chase those dreams and aspirations. For the people that I worked with, the other captains and the other lieutenants and everything like that, again, just be the best teammate you can, right? Be the best person that you can be, and do the right things for the right reasons, and help people when they need help. Or even, if they don't think that they need help, try to lend a helping hand anyway. Nothing gets accomplished by an individual. And I needed my friends, the Brett Bruncos, the Brian Moros, the, Eric Nietos, the Nick Beerings, the Siafa Masleys, all those guys. I needed the Tom Ducros. I needed those guys. Right. And it's better to accomplish as a team than it is as individuals. And the moment that you're friends with all of the people that you work with, and that competition now doesn't matter and you're just competing with yourself, is the moment that you can really start to have fun at your job. And to the subordinates, those are my favorite group of people in the whole world. Soldiers, NCOs, and lieutenants are my favorite people of all time. I am a better person for having served with them. And my message to them would be, everyone says, learn from everywhere that you can. Don't be afraid to, I guess that would be to the two ranks above as well, as, hey, you're learning something, doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's from a private or it's from a 4-star general, it doesn't matter where it's come from. What matters is you learn something. I would say that to them as well, it's like, Don't be afraid to help someone that may outrank you, right? Like, don't be afraid to speak up to help them out, and don't be afraid to tell the truth, right? A lot of times, a lot of leaders just want the truth. They just want the truth.
Yep.
And
For
don't
sure.
be afraid to tell it. Don't be afraid to tell it, because they need to hear it to improve the organization or to make the right decision. So please, 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 don't be afraid to tell the truth. And I think the overarching message that I would have to all of them is, just like the Bible teaches, just like Christ teaches, it's just love others as you love yourself. Just treat others as you would want to be treated. When you're sitting in that chair and you're about to make a decision on somebody or for somebody or with somebody or whatever that case may be, if you sit there and think, if I was them, how would I want someone in this position to treat me?
Yeah.
The decision becomes very, very clear, and it's very easy to make. And I promise you won't ever regret treating someone that way, right? The way that you would want to be treated, the way that, helping someone in a way that you would want to be helped when you needed it, right? You're never going to regret that. And I have never seen that decision go wrong.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it going wrong. I've never heard of, well, I was just treating him. I was just making the best decision for him, because that's what I would want done for me.
Yeah.
No one has ever been like, man, I really regret that.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
I've never heard
well
that. And yeah. And if, at the end of the day, if it all boils down to one thing, I'd boil it down to that. It's just, love others as you love yourself and treat people the way you would want to be treated.
Yeah. Very well said.
Thank you for this letting me talk. I know I talk too much. I'm very well aware of the fact that I run my mouth way too much. So thank you for letting me just run. But
the whole point of this long form content is that you can actually dig deep into the conversation and into some of the material and start to hear what people are thinking, so it's been super, super to hear you, you get into all that and share so much with so many people. Cause I know you're speaking on behalf of a lot of your teammates and a lot of the people that are out there that have shared things with you, and you're speaking from your perspective, your story, the things that you experienced while you were in the Army. But those are so similar to a lot of folks that are out there that I'm having conversations with that I don't record, right? That I do get to, they still share things with me. If there was anything that either myself or any of the listeners could do for Joe Bocchi or anybody that's on your teams, what would that be, and what could we do for you?
Well, stay in touch. Number one, I'm a people person, and so if anyone has any other questions or wants to talk about this more, it's something I'm really passionate about. I'd love to go even further in depth or touch on more stuff, that we may not have already, because I really, really do want to help. And so if anyone out there that listens to this wants clarification or wants me to go into further depth or, wants to get my perspective for whatever they think it's worth, I'm more than happy to do it. I'd love to do that. And then, just like, I think in stuff like this, on this topic, it's really, really easy for people to get, potentially upset by it. Right. For one reason or another. And I don't want that to come across, if I offended anyone or hurt anyone by, any comment that I made of like why I got out of the Army or anything. It has nothing to do with them. I loved the Army. I loved it. I still love it. It was awesome. I loved it. It just, there's stuff in life that happened for me that, and things I had to come to terms with and make decisions on. And I made it based on my perspective and my experiences. And that's kind of what I want people to take away is, if you're a leader and you have someone like me sitting in front of you, or, if you're a leader and that packet comes across your desk, please sit them down and ask them why they're doing what they're doing and have a conversation with them about it. Because I didn't really have a whole lot of conversations about why I was getting out and a lot of that stuff, and there may be people like me that are making that choice and have an opportunity that they have absolutely no idea about, that they would go to and love in the Army and be incredibly talented at, and that we're missing, or people that are getting out of the Army and are looking for an opportunity on the outside world or a connection of some kind that you may have, you know, just like, it's not a personal thing, right? Very often. And it's just understanding why these people are making the decisions they're making, I think is very, very critical. And it's really easy to get upset with people because, you know, they're leaving an organization that people are so passionate about. But, you know, if there was a message that I could give, if there's something that you guys could do for me, it would be that. It would be to take care of those people and have those conversations and just ask them why they're doing what they're doing and just see how you can help them. You know, maybe you have a conversation, like, why would this guy be getting out? And then you talk to him and you're like, oh, wow, that makes complete sense. How can I help you? Right. Or maybe it's like, why are you getting out? And then you listen to him and it's like, oh, brother, we got this for you. Like, before you make any other decisions, like, try this out. This may be awesome, you know? And to the lieutenants out there, if there's any lieutenants listening to this, please do company command. It's like the best experience of your whole life. Don't give up on the first duty station. I know a lot of guys want to, but please do company command. It's amazing. So if those are some of the things that, you know, that the people out there could do for me, it's that, you know, if you want more input, I don't know if it's worth anything, but if you want more, you're more than welcome to ask for it. And please have those conversations. Please have those conversations with your people. And if you're a lieutenant, please give company command a shot, because I promise you will not. I've never met a person that's regretted it. So, yeah.
Well, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this. You know, this is years in the making. You know, years in the making. These conversations that we've been having. I really appreciate that you're willing to share it with so many people, having the confidence to put yourself out there and to share with other folks. You know, not everybody is. You know, and you've got the courage to share it. You got the charisma to share what you out there. You got the track record. That people that know who you are and know what you were a part of, they want to listen to somebody that's got a positive track record, that knows what they're talking about when they share some of these things. And so I really appreciate you being on here today and sharing that so much with everybody.
Well, thank you, number one, for having me on. Again, like, this platform is incredible. I love what you're doing. This is like one of the coolest projects I've ever heard of in my life, to be honest. Like, this is so cool. And the people that you've had on here are, a lot of them, if not all of them, are not only great Americans and examples for not just the Army, but society, but like in a lot of cases, heroes as well. And so to be able to just be like, you know, a regular guy like me and share that platform with them is unbelievable. And, you know, to have someone that cares about me in that way and my experience and my message is unbelievable. And you've had so many amazing things to say about me that I don't know if I could have ever, you know, cobbled together to say about myself. I just, like I said, I just look in the mirror. I just see Joe Bocchi, you know? So thank you so much for your kind words and this amazing opportunity. And I just hope that even if it's just one person, it may be 5 seconds of something I said, I just hope it helps somebody. So thank you for giving me that chance. I ended up wanting to go to 75th. You know, I failed Ranger School the first time. I went back months later, passed, then went to Hawaii. So I was really late in my timeline, and I missed the hiring window for the 75th. And I was so upset. And then, of course, like, you know, couldn't do SFAS, and I was really upset. And, you know, it wasn't until I was in company command that I looked back and I was like, you know, I'm grateful that none of that happened, because of the impact that I'm having here and what's going on here. And, you know, like, if he asks, you know, or talks about any of his journey, you know, you can share that with him. It's like, hey, look, this dude failed at everything he tried to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. He failed at every time. He didn't even get to go, you know, and I don't regret it at all. Yeah. I don't regret it at all. You know, I was put where I was supposed to be.
God's got a plan for all of us.
All of us. You know what? The route that he's on right now is exactly where he's supposed to be, and he's probably going to go do some amazing shit for whatever organization gets the privilege of having him, you know. So props to him, you know, for sticking it out and going with it.
Yeah, I'll share it with him for sure. I appreciate it, brother.
All right, sir. Thank you so much again. I appreciate it. And I will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts and better yet demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky